Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining me. I'm doing another YouTube video today, kind of following on from the previous one, which was that loading image GIF. We're looking again at the Walk of the Day app which I've made, and what I wanted to do was basically provide some guidance and steps as I'm making this app. I'm gonna do a sort of pre-video, I think, when everything's come together, just to kind of explain everything that's going off in this. But really, I'm just going to keep these videos as short and sweet and factual as I can, just in case people aren't aiming to use these to create the app, and if they just want to use it for the functionality that we're looking at. So hopefully it's not going to be too brief, but I'm just going to be taking you through the MSN weather connector today and the Bing Maps connector, and kind of how you can customize those to create a nice personalized touch for people when they're using your app. And also kind of the best way of using these connectors and making sure that we're loading up that data when the app's loading up, and putting things into variables and collections and things like that, just so we can use them throughout our app nice and smoothly. So just to show you what I mean, here we've got a little bit of a snippet, and if we kind of look into the text here, and you don't need to know this perfectly, we are basically looking at some of these variables that we've made and then getting some of that information. And we've got a bit of a condition going on here as well, to say that if the temperature of today is above 10, we want to say it's the perfect weather to go on a walk. If it's below 10, then we're saying it's a little chilly, don't forget your coat. And you can kind of customize this in any way that you want, but I just thought it's a nice way of showing what can be done to make this app look a little bit more interactive. And we've also got a GIF, which is saying that if it's hot, then we want to show the sunshine. If it's cold, we want to show the rain cloud with rain coming out of it. Obviously, you can add to these things. You might want to say if it's snowing, then show some snow. Do you know what I mean? But we're just keeping it simple for this app, just trying to give you a bit of inspiration, or perhaps guiding you through on how we can create this walk of the day, which is just going to be ongoing throughout these videos, because it's a work in progress for me at the moment. So I'm just kind of taking you through as I go along. Okay, so I'm just at make.powerapps.com, ready to create a new app. I'm purely doing this because I need to recreate all those connections that I did in the other app. However, if you are following along with the walk of the day kind of tutorial, then do feel free to just pick off from that first screen that you made and continue on through there. I'm just going to do a blank canvas app for now. And I'm just going to call this walk of the day weather. And maybe I should make it a tablet actually, just because it's a bit easier to see. So the first thing that we're going to do is just basically connect it up to our data sources that we want. So we want the MSN weather, and we're using that to basically determine the weather of the person's area. And we're using the Bing Maps connector to determine the actual location of the user. So I've just headed over to data sources over here on the left, and I'm just going to do a search for both of them. So I've searched for MSN, and MSN weather has come up straight away. And let's just click on that, and it will just get added straight into our app. And then the next one is Bing Maps. So again, we want to search for Bing Maps. Now with this one, we do need an API key. So let me just check how we can do that. So I've already set this up. So to get this API key, you want to go to this address here, Bing Maps and the Dev Center. So I'll post the link in. You want to sign in, and I'll just do that now because I've already created an account. And then you're basically going to be granted a key, which you can then use. So you'll then copy that key out, and you'll basically just be asked to input it in the app. So hopefully that makes sense. So it's bingmapsportal.com. This will take you to this dev area, and then you can basically just get a key. I can see how it says here, click here to create a new key if I really wanted to. And then you can just use that in your app, but it will prompt you for it when you do first create that connection. Okay, so hopefully that's nice and clear. So we've connected up to both of those data sources, and I'm just going to sort of give you a preview of how those are going to work. And just to kind of replicate what I've done on the previous app, I'm just going to add a label here just for that first bit of text. Now, I don't want to kind of go over stuff that's not necessarily important here, but the first bit of text on my app was saying, "Welcome back, Chloe." So that's just taking the user's name who's actually signed into the app. So let's just do welcome back and leave that there. Now, all of the information that we're kind of gathering here is all being done in the on start of the app. So I'm cautious that I'm not going to show you anything very interesting at the moment, but this is what we're going to do to actually make sure we're gathering all that information when the app loads, and who is the user that's signed in and things like that. So first thing that we want to do is, although in Power Apps it does give you information about the user, I think you can just get the user's name and their email address. That isn't quite enough information for what we want here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in the Office 365 users connector just to kind of pull in a bit more of that information. Then it's going to make it a little bit easier for us. So again, coming over to our data sources and searching for Office 365 users, and it's right here. And we just connect to that as well. Easy as that. So back in the on start, what we want to do first is get some information about the user. So I'm going to actually set a variable here, and to do that we just want to type out set, and then we want our brackets. So then it's asking for the variable and the value. So our variable is going to be what we're going to name this, so what we're going to reference it. And I tend to go for user info. This can be whatever you want. You might want to have var user info if that helps you kind of clear up where and what your variables are. But I'm just going to go for user info. And then I want to look at this Office 365 users connector. So I'm going to do a bracket and search for Office 365 users. And you'll see here that we've got all these different bits of information that we can gather just from that Office 365 users connector. Now we want to get the information of the person actually logged into the app. So we're going to go for one of the My Profile, and we'll do the My Profile V2 just because it's the newest one. And that's literally all we need to do. We don't need to do anything else there. So we can just close off these brackets, and that's done. So now we're going to be able to get the user information of the user. So let me just give you a quick preview as to how that will work. So remember, it's called user info. I'm just going to run the on start. So just remember to do this when you're putting things in the kind of app area, the on start area, because otherwise nothing's going to happen. So you need to make sure that you run it just to make sure that it's actually done that process and set that variable so that it would do when the app loads. So let's go back to our label here. And basically, I just want to pull back my name. So when you do some normal text, you want to have quotes around it. When you are going to add in more information, you want to add an ampersand. I think that's how you call it. And as you can see here, this has already popped up, but you might need to search for it. So we've got our user info, which is great. However, the user info is basically holding all of that information about that Office 365 users, like their the person logged in's manager, email, etc., etc. And if I just do a dot here, this is allowing us to kind of drill down further into that information. So about me, city, department, etc., etc. And I think it's the given name that I'm after here. And you can see here that it's just pulled back my name straight away. One other thing to notice is we just want to add in a space here. So if you are doing these kind of bits of text with a bit of content, then you want to make sure that you're just putting in this little cheeky gap at the end, because sometimes it won't put that in for you basically. Okay, and that's done. So we're pulling in that user information, and remember, you can pull back the manager, you can pull back all the different things that came up from that list. But I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. Another thing to think about here is, could we actually, in our on start, it might be if the rest of this information is of no value to you, then there's no point capturing it all. So if it was the fact that for your user info, you only wanted the given name and you're not going to use any of this other information throughout the app, then just pull that through here instead. So now our user info is only going to contain the given name of the logged in user instead of this record, which is containing all of those different elements associated to the person's profile. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's kind of a way that you can customize that and just basically pull back as little information as you can. But I think throughout this app, I'm going to want to find the person's manager and all these different things. So I'm going to stick with just the My Profile. And then if I wanted to change this here to the manager, then I can do that, and I can use this throughout my app by just typing user info. Nice and quick and easy, rather than having to use the Office 365 connectors every time. Oh, if I can type, let's go back to given name. And I'm just going to need to run the on start again there, and that information's been populated right back again. Okay, cool. So I think we're ready now to look at the text for the app. So let's go ahead and add another label. It could have been the same label, but we're going to do it in a separate one. And this is where our text, the first thing that our text is going to say is it's basically going to be a snippet of what the weather is like today, and then it's going to get the temperature, and then it's going to get the person's city, and then it's going to have that little if condition saying if the weather's nice, then it's going to say this. If the weather's bad, then it's going to say this. Okay, so we need to go back into our on start again, and in the real world, it may be that you don't want this information to be pulled in on your on start because you don't want your app to take that much time to load. Hopefully, it's not going to take that long, but you know, if the page that the weather is on is like 5 pages down into your app, if that makes sense, then you can maybe put it in the on visible of the screen instead. So like in this screen here, I can do this on visible property, and we can set variables and do stuff there just the same as we can in the on start of the app. But I like to use on start of the app just because I kind of give my apps about 5 seconds with that loading screen like we showed in the last screen to load up anyway. So yeah, let's stick with the on start of the app for now. So next thing that we want to do is get the location of the user. Now what I'm going to do, just to make this clearer for the demonstration, is add in some little kind of text areas just so we can clarify what's going on here. So here we're getting the info of logged in user. Sorry, I'm really bad at typing. So just two forward slashes here, and that's just going to let you put in some kind of free text to describe what you're doing, which I would always recommend just because it keeps things nice and clean. So next thing that we're doing is getting the user's location. Now you might have spotted actually that in this My Profile V2 connector, we've actually got .city. Now I would use that, but it is very dependent on whether your organization actually keeps that information up to date, because we could use that later on in our app where we want to find out what the weather is like in that person's city. However, I think it's nice to use the Bing Maps connection, because then we know that if someone is using the app out and about, it's going to pick up where they are at that exact point, as opposed to just their kind of static location that's stored in their Office 365 users profile. But just to give you an idea, it is possible to just pick it up from there. So I'm going to set another variable. So this variable is going to be for the location. So I'm going to call it user location. And this is where we want to use the Bing Maps connector. So if I search for Bing, obviously I've already created that connection, and I can see the options that we've got here. So do have a browse through. You can use this get map one to get a physical map which you would use with an image to pin, and you can even pinpoint someone's location on a map, which is really, really nice. So do use these connectors and get familiar with them because they're very, very useful. Now what I want to do is get the location by point, and the point is our latitude and longitude point. And we can get this information from the logged in users app as well. So I'm gonna just type location dot, and you can see up here that it's the latitude that it's after first, and this kind of area up at the top sort of guides you through what you need to put in. So location dot latitude and location dot longitude. Okay, so now we're getting the user's location using Bing Maps. I'm just going to show you what that actually returns and what we actually want to pull from that value. So I'm just going to create a label. Let's just use this one that we already have. And we're going to look for our variable, which was user location. And what we're going to pull from that is the address. And then to go even deeper, we want the formatted address. Now you'll see there's a few other pieces of information that we can pull out from that user address, but in this scenario I want the formatted address because that's what's going to give us our city. Now you can see that that's worked. However, you can see that we've got the full address, and what I actually want is just the city, which is that center bit between the two commas. Now to do that, I'm going to basically split this out to create 3 separate records. Now to do that, I'm going to just go back to the on start of the app just because I think that's the easiest place to do it, and that's where we actually do want it to take place. So let's call this split address. And then we want to do another variable, and I'm going to call this address split. So what we want to do here is a split function, and we are splitting the user location, and we're basically just going to do what I just typed out to show you the bit of information that we need. So we want the user location dot address dot formatted address, and we're going to split that at the comma. So if I just put a little quote around the comma, so now it knows, okay, so you want to create 3 separate things, and the separator is the comma, basically. Now I'm just going to show you what actually happens because you don't really get to see what's going on in the onStart. I'm just going to run it and create a table just to show you that it's actually created 3 separate records. So just in this data table, and you don't need to do this, I'm just doing it so you can see in the items, what was it called again? Address split. And if I just add in the result here, you'll see that it's created 3 separate records. So what we want to do next is to capture that the city. So I'm gonna just call this one get city and set another variable and call this user city. And what we want to do here is we're gonna want to actually capture the information from that table, and to do that I'm going to do a first n, and this is basically the table that we're getting the information from. So remember that table is called address split. And then we want to just add in a dot result here just to pull back the actual information from that table. And the next thing that we want to do is we want the last result in that table. So I'm going to put a last around all of this, and we want the second record, the second to last record, which is going to be our city. Now, the way that this Bing Maps connector works, that is just the kind of layout of it. So the city is going to be before the postcode, which is the last thing. So hopefully that makes sense. And then we're going to put dot result on the end, and then that is going to return our city. So if I just run the onStart again and add in just another label just so we can confirm that that's worked. And if I search for user city, it's pulled back the city, which is perfect and just what we need. So let's delete that and delete our table as well, because we don't actually need those. We don't actually need this either. Let's just remove the text out of it for now. So let's just move on to the last part of what we want to run for now in the OnStart, which is getting the user's actual weather. So this is where the MSN weather connector comes into play. So I'm going to call this get user weather and set another variable called user weather. And then here I want to use the MSN connector. And let me just move this up so you can see. Now the MSN connector is really, really good. There's loads of different things we can do. What I'm going to look at is today's forecast, because in my app I'm kind of just giving people the outlook of the day. You could do tomorrow's, you could do the current weather, but I think today and tomorrow give you the nice little summary kind of thing. That's a quite a sort of friendly sounding summary, if that makes sense. So MSN weather, and we want today's forecast. I'm just going to select it here. And then you can see up here that the actual location options that we've got, you can do city, etc., etc., postcode, and lat long. Now remember, we've got a lot of this already stored. So we've got our lat long stored in our user location over here. We can grab our postcode from our address split if we wanted to, or we could even do the user location dot address dot postcode to capture that information. But I'm just going to keep it simple and do the user city. It doesn't need to be massively accurate, so I'm just going to basically use this for now. And then the units is personal preference pretty much, but I'm going to go with metric, and let's just close that off. So now we're getting the weather of the person as well. Now let's just run the OnStart again. And you can see that it was kind of loading at the top there as that was pulling through that information. Now let's go back to this text box and we can maybe start building this up. So what I want to capture here is the summary kind of weather for the day. So I'm going to search for that user weather. Let's just see what information we can pull out here. So I'm going to do as in a dot, and we want to go for the responses. And we want the daily outlook kind of thing. Now there's loads of things that we can get here. I just want the forecast for the day, so I'm going to choose day. There's lots of other options that you can choose, like the UV, the wind speed and things like that. And I want the summary, so this is going to give us that nice kind of user-friendly bit of information. So we can see here that it says the skies will be cloudy and that the high will be 10. What I want to add in as well is to just say, I think 10, the weather will be 10 is a bit brief, so I want to add in a degrees Celsius, which I'm just going to copy from somewhere else because I don't know where the degree symbol is on my keyboard. So I'm saying degrees Celsius in, and then I'm doing the person's city, so I want to do another and then I can just grab that user city straight away, and it looks really nice. So the only problem is here that we've got this little dot after the number 10. Now I do think with this MSN weather connector, it's always going to give us the temperature at the end with a full stop. So if they do kind of change how they format that, then obviously the app's going to need to be modified a bit. But I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do to basically get rid of that full stop at the end. Because this is quite a long expression as well, I'm kind of thinking this is going to sit better in our OnStart again. So just back over here, I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call this the daily summary. And let's do a set and call it daily summary. And then it's going to be that which I just typed out basically. And that's going to be our value. And we only needed one comma there. So let's run the OnStart again. Now I'm going to change this over to that daily summary that we just set. However, I need to modify this text, and I am going to do it here. Let's move this down so you can see a bit better. So I'm going to modify this text to basically show us to get rid of that full stop at the end. It's a bit of a faff, so let's just get on with it. So what I want to do is first of all get the length of that summary, and to do that I do a len with the brackets, and then that's going to pull back the length of that whole summary, which is 46 characters, and that makes it look like it's 46 degrees. It's not what we want. So what we want to put in front of that is a left, and we're again going to look at that daily summary. Let's just do that a second so we can actually find it. So we're putting in that daily summary, and then we want the comma. So we're getting the character to the left of the daily summary, and the number of characters is the length of it. Hopefully this is making sense. And then we want to do -1, so that's taking one character off the end of it. Now hopefully that's going to have got rid of, yeah, so that has now removed our full stop at the end. So yeah, I think that's looking pretty nice now. So the next thing that we're looking at is our if function. So I'm just going to do a full stop at the end. Oh, sorry, I'm forgetting my and. So we've got a nice sentence there. Now the next thing that we want to do is start looking at our if condition. And this is basically saying that if the weather is above a certain temperature, then we want to say to go outside. If it's cold, then we want to say to put on a coat. Now we are going to need to get that temperature from the person's weather again. So I'm just going to do that here, but you could load it up and put it into a variable if you really wanted to. So we're going to do an if condition, and we're looking at that user weather again. And to get what we want here, we want the response, we want the daily, and we want the temperature really. I'm gonna go for the high temperature. You might want to go for the low. You might want to do some sort of an average. I'm sure it probably gives you an average somewhere anyway. But let's just go for the temperature high. So if the high temperature is more than 10, you might want this to be 15 degrees actually or something like that. Then we're going to add in some text and say, great weather today. Let's go outside. Be very enthusiastic. If not, remember we can add in more value, true or false values here if we really wanted to. I'm just keeping it simple, but do feel free to add to this as much as you like. I'm going to say the weather isn't great. Don't forget a jacket. And let's close that off and finish that off. Okay, so the last thing that we want to do with this functionality for the weather is get our nice little GIFs in. So we're going to use basically the same condition here to say that if the weather is above 10 degrees, we want to show the sunshine. If it's not, then we want to show the rain cloud. So I'm going to come into File and Media, just because I haven't actually added my images yet. And I'm going to add my 2 images. Now these GIFs are from that site that I have been using quite a bit for this app, so I'll post that link in the description of the video. I'm not too sure why it's taking so long to load. Okay, there we go. So let's just pinch this first bit of this condition here because we're basically just doing the same thing. So let's do a media and an image. And our image, this is where we're gonna do the condition. So we're saying if it's above 10, we want our sunshine GIF. If not, we want our sun and rain GIF, which is here. So yes, so we've got the sun and rain GIF because the weather is below 10 degrees.